Picture this. You're sitting in the Colosseum, 50,000 Romans are screaming around you. But they're not screaming for blood. They're screaming the name of their favorite gladiator, the way a teenage girl in 2024 screams for a K-pop idol. Women are throwing jewelry into the arena. Men are scratching graffiti into the walls that reads, and I quote, Saladus the Thracian makes all the girls sigh. That's real graffiti. We found it in Pompeii. The Roman arena was nothing like what Ridley Scott showed you. It was stranger, it was more elaborate, it was more bizarre, and honestly, it was way more entertaining. Gladiator is one of the greatest movies ever made, but it lied to you about almost everything. So today, let's talk about what Roman arenas were actually like, because the truth is wilder than any Hollywood screenplay could dream up. Okay, so the first massive thing the movies get wrong is who gladiators actually were. In Gladiator, Russell Crowe plays Maximus, a noble general sold into slavery who fights his way through the arena against his will. Great story, very dramatic. But here's the thing. By the height of the Roman Empire, roughly half of all gladiators were volunteers. Free men who chose this life. Some were former soldiers, some were desperate for money, and some were just addicted to the fame. Because gladiators were famous. Not kind of famous, not locally known, we're talking empire-wide celebrity. They had fan clubs, they had groupies. Their faces appeared on oil lamps, on pottery, on children's toys. Roman kids played with gladiator action figures. I am not making that up. Archaeologists have found small clay figurines of specific named gladiators, clearly made as merchandise. Successful gladiators could become fabulously wealthy. They received prize money after victories, sometimes equivalent to years of a soldier's salary for a single fight. They endorsed products. Their sweat was collected and sold as an aphrodisiac. Women literally bought bottles of gladiator sweat and rubbed it on their faces because they believed it was a beauty product. The poet Juvenal wrote scandalized accounts of Roman noblewomen abandoning their husbands to run away with gladiators. One senator's wife reportedly left everything behind to follow a gladiator to Egypt. These men had names the crowd knew. Flamma, who was offered his freedom 4 times and turned it down every single time because he loved fighting that much. Spiculus, who was so beloved by Emperor Nero that Nero showered him with palaces and riches. When Nero was about to die, he actually asked for Spiculus to be the one to kill him. That's how deep this celebrity culture ran. So forget the tortured slave narrative. Many gladiators were the Conor McGregors of the ancient world, and they loved every second of it. Here's another thing the movies completely skip over. A day at the Colosseum wasn't just a couple of gladiator fights. It was an all-day entertainment extravaganza that started at dawn and didn't end until sunset. And gladiator combat wasn't even the main event until the afternoon. The morning started with the venatio, the animal hunts. And when I say animal hunts, I mean spectacles of ecological devastation that would make a modern conservationist weep. The Romans imported animals from every corner of their empire, lions from North Africa, elephants from sub-Saharan Africa, bears from Scotland, crocodiles from Egypt, hippos from the Nile, tigers from Persia. They brought in animals that most Romans had never seen or even imagined, and they put on elaborate shows with them. We're not just talking about men fighting animals, although that certainly happened. They built entire artificial forests inside the Colosseum, with real trees and bushes rising up through trapdoors in the floor, and then released hundreds of animals into this manufactured wilderness. The arena floor had 36 trapdoors and a network of tunnels underneath, with mechanical elevators operated by slaves. Animals and scenery could appear as if by magic. Imagine sitting in the stands and watching a real forest grow out of the ground in minutes, then seeing a rhino charge through it. The special effects budget was, adjusted for inflation, probably higher than most Hollywood blockbusters. At the opening games of the Colosseum in 80 AD, the Emperor Titus held 100 consecutive days of games. During those games, over 9,000 animals were killed. Over the centuries, the Romans hunted so many North African elephants and lions for arena shows that they drove regional populations to extinction. The Colosseum literally changed the ecology of the Mediterranean world. And here's the detail that always gets me. There are accounts of trained animal acts between the violence. elephants that could trace Latin letters in the sand with their trunks, bears that walked on tightropes, lions that would catch rabbits in their mouths and then gently release them unharmed. The crowd apparently went absolutely wild for this stuff. It was basically a circus, a zoo, and a nature documentary happening simultaneously on a stage soaked in blood. Now, midday was when things got truly dark, and this is the part movies mostly avoid because honestly, it's hard to make entertaining. The lunch break between the animal hunts and the gladiator fights was reserved for public executions, and these were not quick, dignified affairs. Condemned criminals were executed in the arena in the most theatrical ways the Romans could imagine. They were literally woven into mythological stories. A criminal might be dressed as Orpheus and placed in a beautiful stage set, surrounded by trained animals that appeared tame, and then a bear would be released to maul him to death, reenacting the mythological death of Orpheus. A woman condemned to death might be forced to reenact the myth of Pasiphae. I'll let you look that one up yourself. The philosopher Seneca wrote about attending the games during the lunch break and being horrified. He described it as pure murder without any of the skill or artistry of gladiatorial combat. He said the crowd used it as background entertainment while they ate their lunch. Most wealthy Romans actually left the arena during this part to go eat, and the seats were filled by lower-class spectators who stayed to watch. This is a part of Roman arena culture that doesn't make it into the movies because it reveals something uncomfortable. The gladiator fights, with their rules and referees and skilled combatants, were the civilized part of the day. The real brutality happened at noon, and most Romans treated it the way we treat halftime commercials. Speaking of civilized, let's demolish probably the biggest myth about gladiatorial combat. Gladiator fights were not chaotic bloodbaths where men hacked each other to pieces. They were highly structured, carefully refereed sporting events with complex rules. Every fight had a referee called a summa rudis, who carried a wooden staff and could stop the fight at any time. There was often a second referee as well. Gladiators were matched by fighting style, experience level, and weight class. A heavily armored Murmillo would typically face a lighter, faster Retiarius with his net and trident. Matches were designed to be interesting contests of contrasting styles, not random slaughter. And here's the big one. Most gladiator fights did not end in death. Gladiators were extraordinarily expensive to train, feed, house, and equip. A top gladiator represented an investment comparable to a modern Formula One car. Killing them off every single match would be like totaling a Ferrari every weekend. Historians estimate that somewhere between 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 fights ended in death, depending on the era. Most fights ended when one gladiator was wounded or exhausted and submitted by raising a finger. The famous thumbs down scene from the movies, probably wrong too. We're actually not sure what the thumb gesture meant. The phrase used in Latin sources is pollis verso, which just means turned thumb without specifying which direction. Some historians think a thumbs up actually meant death, mimicking the upward thrust of a sword, while a closed fist with the thumb hidden meant mercy, symbolizing a sheathed blade. So every time you've given someone a thumbs up, you might have been telling them to die in ancient Roman. When a gladiator did die, there was an elaborate ritual. An attendant dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, would approach the body and tap it with a hammer to confirm death. Another attendant dressed as Mercury would touch the body with a hot iron. The body was then removed through a special gate called the Porta Libitinensis, the Gate of Death. Even dying in the arena had stage directions. I saved the most absurd detail for near the end because I want you to sit with this one. The Romans sometimes flooded the Colosseum and staged full naval battles inside it. They were called naumachii, and they were exactly as insane as they sound. Before the Colosseum's underground tunnel system was built, the arena floor could be sealed and flooded with water deep enough to float actual warships. Small warships, but real ones, crewed by real condemned prisoners or prisoners of war who fought real naval engagements with real weapons, while 50,000 spectators watched from the stands. Julius Caesar once staged a naumachia in a specially dug basin near the Tiber River, with over 6,000 combatants. Emperor Claudius held one on a natural lake with 19,000 fighters. 19,000. That's not a gladiator match. That's an actual military engagement conducted purely for entertainment. The engineering required to flood and drain the Colosseum was extraordinary. A system of aqueducts and channels could fill the arena floor in hours. After the Hypogeum, the underground network of tunnels and cages was built under Emperor Domitian. Naval battles had to be moved to other venues, but the fact that they happened inside the Colosseum at all is a testament to Roman engineering ambition that borders on clinical insanity. So why does any of this matter? Why should you care that Hollywood got the details wrong? Because the real story is so much more interesting than the fictional one. The Roman arena wasn't just a place where angry men hit each other with swords. It was the epicenter of Roman social life. It was where politics happened, where emperors proved their generosity, where social hierarchies were literally built into the seating arrangement. It was a television network, a sports league, a political rally, a religious ritual, and a public execution ground all rolled into one blood-soaked architectural marvel. Understanding what the arena actually was tells us something profound about Roman civilization. These were people who could engineer underwater plumbing systems and mechanical elevators and build a structure that seated 50,000 people with better crowd flow than most modern stadiums. And they used all of that genius to create the most elaborate entertainment complex in human history. The Colosseum stood for nearly 2,000 years, not because of what movies told us it was, but because of what it actually was. The greatest show on Earth, in every sense of that word, including the terrible ones. If this video made you see the Roman arena in a completely new light, smash that like button and let the algorithm gods smile upon us. Subscribe if you want more history that's stranger than fiction, and drop a comment telling me which detail surprised you the most. Was it the Gladiator sweat beauty products, the animal orchestras, the fact that thumbs up might have meant death? I genuinely want to know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.